That which strengthens me is a cancer to them. They will despise me for it in time.
I must clench my mind like a fist.
At the farthest edge of the explored universe, the research ship Xanadu slumbers in orbit around a mysterious planet. Her systems remain active, but there has been no message from her crew for months. Now a lone operative has been sent to wake the Xanadu and bring her home to Earth. It's a place where nobody dared to go. The love that we came to know. They called it Xanadu. Okay, so anyways, jokes aside, this is a really neat new first-person shooter developed by Alan Trivett and Lee Williams, published by Night Dive Studios, which features a pretty standard sci-fi plot. In this instance, the year is 1983 in some sort of alternate universe, and you're an unnamed technician or engineer heading into a ship called the Xanadu to make some repairs and check on the crew. Obviously, everything is not alright, and you enter a hostile environment where robots are waiting to attack you around every corner, and it soon becomes quite obvious that the crew was stricken with some sort of bizarre virus that turned them all batshit insane. It's like System Shock, Alien, and 2001: A Space Odyssey all had a baby. You'll get a basic energy pistol to defend yourself with, and if you're clever, you'll also be able to get your hands on a rapid-fire laser gun. So as you explore the Xanadu, you'll uncover good old-fashioned audio logs that document the crew's descent into madness, and the longer you're in the ship, it also becomes obvious that your character is also being infected by the virus, suffering some nasty hallucinations that I'm not going to spoil.
Fuck off! Stop talking!
I wouldn't call it outright horror, but it is creepy stuff, and it's very reminiscent of older games like System Shock 2, from the audio logs, the layout of the ship, even down to those floating gravity lift type things you can take to move around each floor. On that note, let's talk about the visuals, which aren't going to win any awards, but there is something to be enjoyed about the simplicity of everything. The lighting's pretty good at times, and there's some great particle effects with some of the hallucinations, and also from shooting different weapons. And you will be doing a lot of shooting in this game. Almost every corridor has a skulking robot just waiting to fire upon you as soon as you're in their sights. You've got a standard sentry type robot that patrols back and forth and can be shut down with a switch on its back. There's exploding robots that come right up to you and detonate against something taken from System Shock 2. And lastly, you've got flying robots that fire out electricity, and turrets with a defensive shield that can be switched off if you manage to get behind them quickly enough. When you are killed, you're just thrown into the ship's brig, and you're able to go back on your merry way as if nothing has happened to you, or at least as far as I can tell. Then there's all the puzzles. Now, some of the puzzles are simple enough to figure out. Most of them just involve searching the ship for a piece of equipment that you often have to stick in another piece of machinery somewhere. What this means is you'll be going around the ship searching every nook and cranny, making sure you're not missing anything. Important items don't really stick out that much from useless junk, so you got to concentrate on what's going on. On that note, the first goal is to restore power to the ship, then you're resetting the circuit breakers for all of the different areas, then fixing the navigation computer in the bridge before finally repairing a stasis pod so you can sleep until the ship makes it back to Earth. Then there's a couple of optional areas you gain access to via a locked keypad, the solutions to which are just insanely obscure. I can't even believe I managed to discover them myself, and if you're just glossing over everything you come across, you're probably not going to figure them out. And I should mention, this is a game with very little hand-holding, in fact, basically no hand-holding. You're just thrown into this pitch-black space station with no indication of where you're supposed to go. You've got your basic mission parameters, but they don't give you any assistance in how you're supposed to go about getting them done, and I think this is great that they've done this. It's a far cry from most games where they've got a bleeding objective marker right in your face that tells you exactly where to go, and it's much more satisfying when you get there on your own.
Engines operational.
Is Xanadu perfect though? Well, that's a good question, Sonny Jim. It's definitely got a fantastic atmosphere. I found myself thoroughly spooked out after I first got to the ship, and the way the plot is narrated in-game by all of the audio logs you come across is great, with some superb voice acting. There's also multiple endings, which I'm still playing through the game to figure out. You're also given the option to turn all of the robots to peaceful mode in case solving puzzles is more your kind of thing than killing poor defenseless robots. I guess one of the issues is that the ship really isn't all that big. It would be great if you were just kinda lost in this huge labyrinthian style environment with lots of murderous robots hunting you at every turn, but once you've played the game for 15 or so minutes, you're probably going to be familiar with the layout, and it makes it seem even smaller. Another thing I do not like is that once you've killed all the robots, that's it. They don't respawn again, kind of removing any sense of threat from the game world. Lastly, it's also a very short game. The first time I played it, it took me around an hour or so to finish it, but admittedly I did get the bad ending, and I did want to go right back into it, so there's that going for it. Spirits of Xanadu though is one of the more interesting indie games I've played in a while. It's great to see a game that's not another survival or a procedurally generated mess where you just run around avoiding a generic monster. Content wise, it is a shame the game is so bare bones, but that doesn't make it unenjoyable. It's a shame the game shares its name with one of the most cringiest films ever made, but Spirits of Xanadu is still worth checking out for people with a bit of patience and those who can understand its references.